Yo, this is T.O.T. Thank you for dropping in today, if you have. Recently, we got news on the 3.0 Dev Radio, and the biggest takeaway that a lot of players are having is there was a comment about older characters getting buffed. Now, they didn't go into any specifics on this or any details or anything along those lines. Currently, I view this as a nothing burger because older characters have already gotten buffed, and the way that they've been doing it so far in Honkai Star Rail has been through new character synergies like Sunday buffing Jin Liu, for example, or a new light cone like Black Swan is using Jiao Qiu's light cone, and then new relic sets for various characters. So those have been the methods that Mihoyo has gone about so far for buffing older characters in terms of Honkai Star Rail. With that being said though, there have been some comments that across multiple videos that have mentioned Honkai Impact 3rd, and I don't believe there's been that many content creators that have really given good visual representation of what's been done in Honkai Impact 3rd, just to kind of give you a heads up of what likely is going to happen in terms of Honkai Star Rail. Now, again, Honkai Star Rail may do things differently, but if we look at the history of how Mihoyo has gone about buffing older characters, this could probably give us a little bit of insight into how they're likely going to be doing things in regards to Honkai Star Rail. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to cover is pre-arms. So back in the early days of Honkai Impact 3rd, weapons were basically like 4-star tier weapons. They would max out at level 50, you'd level it up, you would be done with it. I think at some point in time, what Mihoyo started to do for older characters is they started to provide certain characters with a pre-arm form to their weapon. This would essentially take the weapon from level 50 to level 65, give it a completely different active skill, which a lot of the times would help deal with some of the character flaws within that character's kit. Now, the downside with this is that the weapon was still gacha sided, so you still had to pull for the weapon in order to get the upgrade. And then they really had this material called Tauruses, which you had to get 400 of these. The only way that you could get this Taurus is by doing in-game content, or you would end up having to do the gacha, get weapons, and convert those weapons that were gacha sided into Tauruses. That was basically how you would obtain this currency. So, paywall method. That's going to be something I'm going to bring up multiple times in this video. Another way that they would go back and buff older characters would be something with the augment core system. So here momentarily I'm going to have some gameplay of Shadow Dash. I believe she was one of the last characters that got this augment core treatment, and you could view this as like an overhaul on the character to where they made sure that the gameplay was still familiar, but they would revamp it and modernize it, and basically would be a huge quality of life buff just in general. And you're going to see the differences between the first version versus the augment core version. Alright, and so that's everything for Shadow Dash. The next example I'm going to use is a little bit more relevant in a sense, and we're going to be using Herrscher of Thunder. So I'm going to be using her base pre-arm weapon, and then I'm going to be using her Divine Key, and I'm going to show you the difference in the rotations.
を創す万物となる。吠えなさい栗から。雷鳴一刀両断。行動開始。雷鳴に全ての罪を洗い流してもらいましょう。
Alright, so the Divine Key not only allowed her to have a much shorter rotation, but the dragon also remains on the field after she uses her ultimate finisher and will do an additional lightning breath on the enemy as well. So completely different animation add-on there at the end, and this is again paywalled. We had to pay for this Divine Key because it was gacha sided. Again, paywall. And the most recent example that we've had of a Divine Key upgrade, at least for C client anyways, has been for HSR Finality Kiana. So in this particular case, this is a more extreme example because this allowed Finality Kiana to have her mechanics integrated into the Part 2 system, which a lot of the Part 1 characters unfortunately don't have. So not only did this cause her rotation to be different, but she now got to take part with the Part 2 mechanics and the resonance and things along those lines. And I'll go ahead and show you the difference between her Part 1 weapon versus her Part 2 weapon. Alright, and that's going to be the differences between those two weapons. So normally whenever a character gets buffed in Honkai Impact 3rd, normally they'll release a new weapon. Normally it's a Divine Key. They will sometimes release a new Stigmata set for this character as well. But the main point that I want to try to make with these examples is that Mihoyo has often done this in a way of paywalling these improvements to older characters. Whether or not this is going to be good for Honkai Star Rail, who knows, but I think players should be really tempered and be under the mindset that however they're planning on buffing these older characters, it will probably be time gated significantly if it's not just outright paywalled. I could see Mihoyo doing something in the context of like, oh yeah, you want to buff this older character, here's how you can do it, but you can pay money to speed up this process significantly. It's going to be money in their pocket. Some players in the community are still going to give Mihoyo praise, and I'm going to say this: Mihoyo has had a notorious history across their gacha games of creating a problem and selling the players the solution. They have been notorious for this. They have a long-running history of doing this in Honkai Impact 3rd. They have a history of doing this in Genshin Impact. They are going to have a history of doing this in Honkai Star Rail. So, my opinion, expect whatever method that they're planning on doing to be a paywalled method. That's just my opinion on things. If you're taking out the time to watch this or listen to this, just want to say thank you so much for your time. You be safe out there. Deuces.